This meeting of Penn 2 Board of Supervisors is called to order. Minutes will be kept by audio recording. Is it just audio, not video too?
It's video as well.
Audio and video recording.
That's why I comb my hair.
Val Humble, present.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Val Humble is present. Who else is present?
Mary Helen Kincaid is present.
Karen Myers is present.
Leslie Sawyer is present.
Thank you. All present and accounted for. Is there any public testimony this morning? Is there any public?
Yeah, there seems to be.
She'll be part of the Evans update.
Okay, there we go.
I'm sorry.
No, you can move on.
What's
We
that?
don't. We have no public testimony.
Okay, all right. The first item on the agenda is Sunny with signing authorities issues.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So we are continuing to extend our remote work protocols based on the numbers of COVID and the continuing governor's recommendations about trying to minimize contact with each other and risk. So we are asking to extend the staff-only signatures on the checks so that we can not have more people in the office and to minimize the contact amongst each other. We'd like to extend it through January 31st. That way we can address it in the January format or board meetings, which we don't have on the schedule yet. So we just kind of picked the end of the month. So wanted to see if you all are comfortable with that or if you have any questions about that extension or how the process has been working so far with you.
I have no problem with it, but on the agenda, it says January 31st, 2020, but don't you mean 2021? Okay. I just want to make sure I'm in the right year. I sometimes don't know what day it is, so.
Any other observations, comments, objections? Would one of the board members like to make that motion as listed on the agenda with the 2021 date instead?
Okay. I move to authorize staff-only signatures on checks after electronic board approval through January 31st, 2021, in order to adhere to COVID-19 safety protocols. This is Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
I'll second.
Okay.
Leslie, second?
I did.
Okay. Any other discussion? Let's do a roll call vote on this. Val Humble votes aye.
Karen Myers says aye.
Leslie Sawyer says aye.
We should go alphabetical. Mary Helen Kincaid says aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And do we have Evan Mitchell up for a community update?
Yeah. Hi, folks. Nice to see you all. We just wanted to quickly check in and tell you kind of what we're up to around the Army Corps feasibility study. I know you all got the presentation last month from the Corps about what they're thinking around the refined alignment and particularly their comments around their plans for Bridgeton and Marine Drive. And we think that it's really important for them to go out and tell the community what the revised plan is going to look like. And so we've been working with the Corps to plan a community update meeting for late in October. We're currently planning October 28th from 5:30 to 7:30. We're going to get an invite out here in the next couple of days. And the plan is to really go through what the revisions have been to the TSP and why. We'll have hopefully have a board member from one of the boards talk about a little bit about the decision-making process that the boards are going to go through over the next 4 or 5 months to reach a decision about whether or not that you all are endorsing the plan, and then to provide a little bit of information to community members about what comes next, kind of where we are in the process, that this process involves going into pre-engineering, construction, design, and then construction, and that we have to get authorized and funded for each of those things, and then on an annual basis. And so um, that's currently the plan. We're going to do it via Zoom, obviously, because it's not safe to bring folks together. And the plan currently is to have Jamie Damon, who is on the call with us today, moderate the discussion. We've hired Jamie. She is a mediator with Kearns and West, and she's come on to help us with, and I have no idea if you guys can see her because I can only see myself right now. Oh, um, so Jamie's joined us to kind of to work on a couple of different things. She's going to help us with these community update meetings. Yep, make sure that those discussions go well, that they're well moderated, and that folks get the information that they need, and the follow-up is done as needed. And then she's also here to help us kind of design the process for your board and the other 3 boards to discuss risks, uncertainties, and how you're going to make a decision about the feasibility study for this upcoming spring. So Jamie, do you want to introduce yourself, say a few words?
Sure. And thank you, Evan. And then, well, thank you for having me here today. It's nice to see all your faces. I'm also going to be working with you and with Bill on the assets and liabilities conversation. So you'll be seeing a lot of me over the next 6 to 8 months. So as Evan said, I'm a public policy mediator and facilitator. I've been working as a mediator in Oregon, Washington, and Alaska for over 30 years. And I focus on working with the government entities and community. And so on a wide range of projects, infrastructure, natural resources, emergency services, emergency response, all kinds of things. So I really look forward to working with all of you. And Evan and I have been coordinating really closely, and Bill and I will start working together here in a week or so. And then we expect that at your November board meetings, we'll have a number of things to talk with you about in terms of not just the outcome of the community meeting that's happening at the end of the month, but also a proposal for how we're going to work through decision making together on all of the moving parts that you all are working with right now. So that will be in November. So more to come.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. And yeah, so really quick overview, but if you have any questions, Jamie and I are happy to answer until Val tells us we have to stop and move on.
The question I had is, it seemed to me we were waiting for a core decision as to which alternative. I was particularly interested in the Bridgeton options, of course.
So
has that been made?
So the folks that have been presenting to you from the core represent the Portland district level. So what they can do is they can provide an update of what they are recommending. And that's what they're going to do, is they've told you all what they've recommended. And I'm trying to be cautious about saying it because we're not in executive session and that hasn't been released yet. But by the 28th, they believe that they'll be able to at least tell the community what their recommendation is. Then it will have to go on to division for review and ultimately to headquarters. But they don't anticipate that there'll be changes once their recommendation has been made. So, so what they presented to you last month, I think it was last month, around Bridgeton and Marine Drive is what they're going to tell the community. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So just to make that clear, because I don't think I want to be in the room, and I think Jamie's probably far more trained. If the Army Corps of Engineers goes in and says, we're going to make recommendations, but we can't tell you what they are.
No, they're not going to do that.
Okay, because I just, with the group of people, good. And then my other question is, and maybe it's just phrasing, but can we tell people I don't remember the phrasing you used, but what's at stake, what they could lose, like not pay insurance, it'll cost them $4,000, all of those kinds of things. Because
But the-
people don't realize that because they've lived forever.
Mhm.
I'm going to say behind the curtain. And that's what I hear constantly. Well, why do they have to do this? And why does it cost so much money? And
So the current plan is to have Peggotty start with a sort of quick review as to why we're doing this, what the benefits are of the study, what the risks are of not
Okay.
doing it, because that piece, I agree with you, that piece seems to have continually get lost in this discussion as folks, kind of narrow in on what's being recommended. So we're going to start with that and try to again kind of paint the picture about why we're doing this, what the risks are, and what could be lost if we don't do anything. And then we'll have a board member speak. I think it'll probably be an MCDD board member. And then, because we're going to invite folks from throughout the 4 districts and do this once so that everybody hears the same thing. And then we'll do, the Army Corps of Engineers have committed to presenting what the refinements are and precisely what they are recommending. So they aren't going to stand up and say, we have recommendations, but we're not going to tell you what they are, because that would not be worth having a meeting. So they will present those things, and then we will close with couple things. First, we'll have question and answer in between. We're going to do it via chat since it's a remote meeting. So people will be able to send in their questions throughout the discussion. There'll be different points where we stop and take a few questions, and Jamie will be reading those and, asking different staff members or board members to answer. And then we will have a longer Q&A after the core presentation on the design options. And then we'll do a quick overview of what comes next, how we have to get this through Congress, and kind of what that timeline looks like, so that people don't understand. The other piece that I fear gets missed is that people think there's going to be construction tomorrow. Yeah. And we, I want to make sure that folks understand that even if everything went perfectly for us, we're probably not looking at construction until 2025. So, there's a lot of variables in there that could shift. So, we'll close with a timeline, have some more Q&A until the kind of 2 hours are filled. And then we will follow up with any questions. Afterwards, we're planning on putting out kind of a Q&A, FAQ type response. Here are the questions that we're hearing the most. If folks choose to express their dissatisfaction with the core, or rant about something in the chat, we aren't going to address those things, but we will try to pull out the key themes that we're hearing and the key questions, to try to make sure every participant who wants an answer to their question gets a response. So that's currently the plan. If you have any thoughts, we're very open to suggestions.
And Evan, just one more thing to add on to that. The meeting will be recorded. And so then we will be able to post the whole meeting on the website. And so other people who weren't able to attend the meeting can watch and get the same information as well.
I think it sounds like a great plan. I mean, I'm happy somebody else is going to stand up in front of the room. And not to say that there aren't people that support the effort. It's the people that we all know that. The people that have the most to complain about will be the loudest. I call them tantrum throwers. And so, I mean, you're never going to change that. But I think if we're able to tell them the positive things, what's at risk, people can make an informed guess. And my thought is it'll be like a landowners meeting with 8 or 10 people, and we'll know them all by name. So
I wouldn't be surprised. I to a certain extent, I hope you're right, Mary Helen, but we did get, over 150 people that came to the Expo Center last January. So I wouldn't be surprised if we had, a handful more than kind of a small landowner meeting where we know everybody. I think there is some anxiety around this project, and we would like to, I think this is an opportunity to give people the information in a very controlled way that allows them to kind of walk away and think about it, and hopefully that once the Corps shares what they've done and what the updates are, um, they've tried really, really hard to accommodate a lot of the concerns that were raised in the community. And so hopefully some of that anxiety will be alleviated.
Right. And I hope you point that out, because I think for all the bad stuff people say about the Army Corps of Engineers, they did a phenomenal job of all those walks through Bridgeton, twice on Marine Drive, met with community groups, all of which they didn't have to do. I mean, they
Yep.
could have just not done that. And I think people need to value that participation.
It's a great point.
Just to be clear, all of us will be invited to this
Oh, yeah.
presentation.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This soiree? Yes.
And I would have personally liked to urge, especially make sure Supervisor Sawyer hopefully will be able to attend, because I believe, Leslie, you probably have a personal relationship with the people who are most concerned, most possibly impacted by these changes.
I hear an awful
Yeah, I
lot of
mean-
silence.
All right.
Any
We have
comments?
a little bit of a connection, yes.
Excuse me.
Well, we'll look forward to hearing about that. Are there any other questions, comments from board members? Am I hearing something in the background?
Yeah,
You
Karen,
think, Kat,
I think Karen's talking to someone.
Our tax lady wants money, like thousands of dollars, and I don't think we owe anything. So she's calling back and says, you gotta talk to her. You gotta talk to her. No, I don't. So it'll wait. Sorry.
Okay, am I missing anything? Are we done with that topic for today?
we're good. Thank you.
Okay. So item E on the agenda, Assets and Liabilities Working Group. Mr. Owen?
Good morning, all.
Morning.
Morning, Bill.
I believe the one-page summary of the Assets and Liabilities Board Working Group was sent out to you prior to this meeting. So I'm not going to read that through for you. Hopefully you had a chance just to glance through it and have an opportunity to spend a little bit of time thinking about it. Staff has had an opportunity to reflect and connect with a gentleman who went through a similar process not too long ago in Clackamas County about the value of having a strong stakeholder committee to support the Assets and Liabilities project. From those that conversation and our own deliberations, we felt it may be advantageous to add 2 advisory members from the new Urban District Board to this 4-member working group. Recall Ms. Kincaid is already on this working group representing Penn 2. A representative from the other 3 districts are also participating and will participate in this board working group. And so that's a total of 4. And we're proposing to add 2 more just in an advisory capacity from the urban district. And the reason for this proposal is to have some additional connectivity and strength between the 2 groups. So the outcome of the assets and liabilities efforts can be facilitated at the Urban District Board when their deliberations come up about revenue rate models and so forth. So, and they can speak to some of the nuances perhaps as those conversations begin, as well as championing the information. So The proposal is to add 2 additional members to that working group board in an advisory capacity. Your group and the other 3 existing drainage districts have the responsibility to put this together. And so those 4 district representatives, we feel should be the ones making decisions, but the other 2 urban district board members should be there, we feel, just for advice and suggestions. So any comments about the proposal?
Has the flood safety group asked about this, or are we just going to be telling them, please send us a couple?
We will be raising, first of all, we did not want to ask them about this until we had approval from the existing district boards. Second of all, what we would do is, since that board meeting is on Monday of next week, we would raise this to see if they wanted to participate as well. I think one of the things that, and I'll just reiterate some of the things that Bill said, but I do think it provides each of the district's representatives an opportunity to keep their hat on and not have to flip it back and forth between the new district and the old and the existing district. And I have heard multiple times from multiple boards about the desire to what we are preparing at the district level be useful to that new district. So it kind of provides that continuity, which I think is important. And as Bill said, they would be on an advisory basis only. That will be, I have talked to Mike Jordan about it. He thinks it's a great idea, but we have not raised it with those board members at this point in time till we got approval here.
Personally, it seems like a great idea. Mary Helen, you're on the board. Do you have any comments about it or observations?
I think it's a good idea to get a not district representative from the UF, whatever it is, the new
F squad.
Yeah, F squad, blah blah. If it because then it gives them a vested interest. I kind of see, I see my role as different, but it's interesting because Peggy just raised it, or I don't see the 2 roles as separate, but because in either case I'm representing the people in the district where I live, and they'll still be living there when it's a bigger district. So yeah, I can't see any harm in it. And I'm sure that there are people that would be anxious to or interested in being on that board.
Good. Any other observations, questions, comments?
One other thing, can I add to that? It just struck me. I think it'll also help against the we and them kind of thing. It's like the district boards and the new district, because sometimes it gets kind of put in a light of, well, we'll ask them or we'll ask that board. And truthfully, we're all the same board, and I think that's a good step. As much as we can do those kinds of things will be helpful.
Anything that'll improve the communication seems good to me.
Yeah.
There is a somewhat peripheral issue as we stumble over the name of this thing. I remember when we were talking about the legislation that they were pointing out, we don't need to call it what the legislation named it. Has the board maybe been considering a snappier name for the district?
They are currently they're going to start addressing their mission, vision, values, and that would be part of that process. I think anything would be better than what it is.
Yeah. even if they took over Liberating Columbia, I mean,
That's right. It's anything. But it rolls off my tongue pretty well now, but
your tongue gets more exercise with it, I'm sure.
Probably.
It's taken 6 months to get to that point.
Yeah.
Is there anything further we need to discuss or any action we need to take concerning assets and liabilities working group?
I'll look to either Peggy or Emily or possibly Han, but my intent here was just to get some general direction to say, yes, this seems to be an appropriate move. And if the other three districts respond similarly, that would be enough for us to connect with the new urban district board. I don't know if there needs to be anything more formal.
No, not from my perspective. This is Hong.
Thank you, Hon. Well, I think it's a good idea. Does any board member want to say anything negative about it? Shall we assume we're all thumbs up on that? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You read it.
Okay, I guess Peggy, you're up on the UFSWQD, whatever update.
Yeah, I wanted to, and let me know how you feel about this. It came up with the MCDD board of, to address that connectivity between the new district and the existing districts, to be able to provide them a little more of an update every month. And so I was going to do that with you all as well. If you don't like it, let me know. And I certainly don't want to step on Mary Helen's toes, but I just wanted to kind of use this as a time to let you know what they're doing and also what's going on in the district. So on that note, I think the first thing I'd just like to say is it's obvious that fall blew in with rain. And so I think we got almost an inch of rain over Saturday and Sunday. I anticipate we're supposed to get another ½ inch maybe today, and then it'll be dry for a while, but the system's working. There's a few little, stops and starts, but it was a great way for us to start testing the system before the rainy season comes in. Then the other thing I just wanted to tell you all is we are in the process of hiring a ½ FTE, which was in the budget, to do some more of the finance work.
Yay. Sorry.
Yeah, and to help, that person is a ½ FTE between MCDD and also the new district. So there'll be 50% for them and 50% for our existing districts. Thank you, Mary Helen, for your assistance on that process.
You mean my hissy fit? Sorry.
Yeah, but you're so good at it and effective. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of getting that through. I also just wanted to let you know a little bit in advance, so there's no surprises, is that Sunny Simpkins has notified us that she is moving to Bend.
No.
I know.
She can still have meetings on the business. On the
Right.
house.
Pardon?
She can
She
still
can
work
live
from
it,
home like
yeah.
she's doing now.
Yeah, well, she will through December, actually. I wanted to let you know. And in the meantime, we are looking at some potential organizational changes. We'll know more in another week or two, but I just wanted to let you know this is going to be a hard loss for us. Sunny has been with us for 8 years and has all the institutional knowledge and the expertise, and it's going to be a hard transition. I also wanted to bring up just where we are on the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District. As you all know, but I will reiterate because we kind of think this is starting a new government from scratch, which is always, we have the opportunity to do that, but it was a challenge. It's the first one that's been put together since Metro was formed in the 70s. So the Urban Flood Safety Water Quality District, the F Squad, I will say, are moving rapidly. Staff is doing a tremendous job to make sure that we are setting them up to be successful all the way down. This is developing some of the foundation that's necessary. So we've kind of approached these meetings in 3 tiers. One is just the administrative things that have to get done to make a government function. Another is more focused on our legal behavior, setting up things legally. And then thirdly is looking at things more strategically. And so that's kind of how we've approached this. On the administrative side, they are in the process. It's of adopting bylaws. They've been going through those chunks of bylaws every month. There's not been a lot of discussion. Probably the one that had the most discussion is an issue. It was not in the legislation, but the desire to potentially have a secretary and a treasurer for that board, based on the existing districts and our staff's service to that district. It became apparent that that would probably be redundant. We've been doing that long enough, and it makes sense that it stays within the confines of the districts. But we've also had to sign an IGA. There's also been signature of an IGA between the JCA and the urban district on services that are provided to the new district from the MCDD staff. We've been talking about funding issues, as you may all know. They got a $500,000 grant. But that is not going to get them through. That'll probably get them through the remainder part of this year. And the $40,000 that you all as districts have offered them as a grant. They are also working with Levy Ready to Columbia for some additional funding, but this only gets them through this year. And there is a cliff at the end of June 2021. They have pulled together a budget committee, which includes Tanny, Mike Jordan, Shirley Craddock, Eric Molander, Ann Gravitt from the port. Am I missing anybody, staff? I don't know. To talk about what are the opportunities for next year. We have also gone through some of the, I know this sounds boring, but this takes a lot of work to get done. Their work plan, their insurance, their tax ID, signing. I missed one more. When I was talking about the budget, it's also Commissioner Stegman from the county. But, setting up a registered agent with the state, as well as discussions around, well, we already had that conversation. So wait a minute. I am trying to get over to my, here we go. Also wanted to cover a couple of things as we continue talking about a couple other things. We've also gone through, the members of the boards. We are lucky to have Mary Helen and other existing board members who are experienced with our system, but there are many people on that board that don't know much and are learning about the drainage system. So Bill's gone through a pretty extensive, Bill and Colin went through a pretty extensive briefing on our overview of our system. We're starting to get them up to speed on revenue development and clarifying their roles and responsibilities, which are different from the districts. They're the same, but expanded, I should say. Any comment on that? Then I think the only other thing I wanted to cover is they have to kind of come up with a work plan for this year. Their big focus has been and will remain a focus on the revenue model and starting to put that together. And they went through an exercise 2 months ago about kind of what are the categories that should be within that revenue model, you know, what issues they need to address, which, you know, about operating costs or administration or emergency management or capital planning, et cetera. What was interesting with that group is there were 11 categories, and when they all got to weigh in individually, and when they first weighed in individually, they had equity, environmental, capital, planning, operations and maintenance, and emergency operations. Those were kind of their top priorities of the 11 categories. Then we had them regroup and set up in different, they're no longer individual weighing, but there were 3 in a group to kind of walk through those same categories and determine how the groups would prioritize. The most interesting part, a couple things, they recognize as a new organization, they have the opportunity to embed equity into their everyday activities. You know, we all have been working on kind of going back into the organization and embedding this. This provides the opportunity to address it from the ground up. So they all kind of agreed that equity was kind of the overall umbrella as they move forward with their rate development. They also addressed environmental, which they didn't do in the first individually, but as groups they did. Then they addressed capital planning, operations and maintenance, and federal safety standards. So kind of that's their priority list. The other thing is they are starting their process of establishing mission, vision, values, which we are excited to see, because that's their development of mission, vision, values is really going to be critical in identifying, you know, how they prioritize the costs and what does equity mean? What does and how do you embed it? And what is environmental? And how do you embed it into the process of establishing rates? Just an overview. They're meeting this month, which is next Monday. They'll be continuing their conversation on bylaws, including elections, employees, et cetera. They are going to have an overview of the LRC rate development model that was done by the LRC. I think they finished it up in 2018. And that was kind of a proof of concept, which was used to pass the legislation to demonstrate how the rate development really does not, it does not put undue burden on anyone as a result of that rate development. But they're going to go ahead and go through that, some overview of the model, because that model didn't take into consideration equity, environmental, and other issues that need to be incorporated as we develop the model. And then they're just covering some other things like contracts that are coming ahead and some signing authorities. I know it's administrative and boring, but it still needs to get done. So we're going to be giving them a financial update based on their budget committee is meeting this afternoon to talk about kind of how to meet that shortfall at the end of June and start talking about next steps toward that. And also talk about their participation in the asset and liability work group. So, any questions? Is that too much information? Not enough?
I think you did a fine job, and I need to take better notes at the meetings so that I can, but I do have a couple inputs.
Oh, perfect.
Because the discussion about equity and environmental, and I, in the meeting, made a comment that bottom line, people just want to stay dry. They don't care about environmental. They don't care about equity. We've heard numerous times at East Columbia neighborhood meetings, why is a frog more important than I am? And I think we need to address that because it's a real concern of people. And I raise a red flag or say, stop, Mary Helen. But there are people on the board that if they want minimal restriction to water flow, so they would favor flooding East Columbia, Bridgeton to reclaim the land as it once was 100 years ago. Things have changed, businesses, etc. Well, that led to, of all things, Bob Salinger called me and said, what did you mean by you don't want equity or environmental concerns? And so we had a discussion, which was very fruitful, but I'd like to, as an outcome of that, because Bob and I have a pretty good relationship. We both know that we disagree on some things and agree on some things. And we've been on enough committees together to honor that relationship. But if we need to be able to, and I think if Evan's still on, I don't know, but in some sort of community way, have that discussion, because I believe from the people I heard that comment from, it will be raised in a public meeting at some point. And I think I said, at least they told me I said, I don't have prepared speeches, but I think what I said is there are people that are going to want to throw equity, environmental concerns out the window if their house is at risk of floating away or not meeting U.S. Army Corps of Engineers standards. And if we take on a fight against the U.S. Army Corps, an argument, I always say, that we don't like what they're doing, they're not providing enough protections, what they're doing is going to harm the environment or harm people that are disenfranchised, it's not going to fly and people aren't going to want to pay for it. And the other piece of what I said was the board is made up of a good number of politicians and government representatives. And there's only a few of us that are neighborhood reps. And so some people view that as, a disadvantage. I don't, because those are the people that are going to get people to vote or select to pay for a general obligation bond or whatever. I've also heard the comment through these discussions of, and you touched on it, Peggy, of people that are coming in that are new to the process of why didn't you consider these things in the beginning? I don't think we didn't. My answer to that was, I don't think we ignored or misrepresented any representation, because I'll just use ECNA. We're the third most diverse neighborhood in the city, second only to Cully and East Portland. So we have a mobile home park. We have Deltawood. We have a high-end RV park, but we have people that are severe disadvantaged. Bridgeton is a very unique neighborhood, unlike any other in the city, with the floating homes. And so I think when we talk equity, we need to define what that means, and that it's not just a term that's being used now, and that it means we're protecting all people, with a special eye to those people that would be most at risk. And to me, it doesn't matter whether you're in a $200,000 RV or a $500 donated RV, you're still going to float away. And the end run is the person with a $200,000 RV will have a means for replacement, insurance, funds, etc. The $500 RV will not have that rescue. And that's a huge part of the story of Vanport. The people that had means and connections made it through. It wasn't a good experience, but they had an end run. Black people that survived the flood in Vanport did not have that. So I don't know at what point we look at the after effects of a flood, if that's where the equity and environmental concerns come in, because a flood is a flood. I mean, it's going to wash fish away. It's going to ruin things. So I just want to make that clear, because I think we as board members representing Penn 2 are going to hear a lot of that as it goes forward. And we need to be able to explain to people why it's a good thing to protect all people. So I don't think this big board gets that picture, because there's people coming from all angles and have political concerns. And I don't know how that'll get addressed, but that's one of my concerns of this board is when you talk about how we're going to pay for it. I'm going to pay for it. Val, Karen, Leslie, we're all going to pay for it. And unless we have a way to convince people that it's worth paying for, like you said, we're going to go over the cliff the end of June or, whenever. Then one other completely separate thing. Has anybody talked with East Multnomah Soil Water Conservation District in this whole process? Because they're fairly new too. I think they were formed after Metro. I'm not sure, but.
I know Sunny has worked with them.
Okay. Because I would think they'd have some insights into, they're much smaller, but they're tax-based and have a public board, etc.
Yeah, we've been coordinating with them a lot on what financial policies we need coming up to conform to budget law. And actually Carrie Sandeman is their chair on their board. So we've been connecting a lot with their operations manager for those decisions, but not specifically around, the equity and environment side development.
Right. Yeah, no, I just got asked and said, why do we need another water district? And they mentioned East Multnomah, and I didn't have a good answer. It's like, well, because this is floods and their water conservation and they're more, but anyway.
And their land quality, right? Their mission is we help people care for the land.
Yeah.
So just as a simple response.
Well, it seems to me that we do need to keep the focus on this. This is about flood safety, and that's the major role. But on the other hand, we're asking people who aren't being protected by the levees to help pay for them. So we have to address those other concerns of equity and environmental issues that will bring in support for their support for, say, a bond measure that might help us build those levees. So that's, as I see it, we can't lose sight of the equity and environmental issues, or we're going to lose support for bond measures that'll come up in the future. But we got to have the bonds. The whole point of the money is to keep us dry.
Well, I think we need to remember that we're not keeping our houses dry. We're trying to keep the airport dry and all the major businesses.
That's right. Where they benefit, and they all benefit from the taxes and the commerce that's associated with that. And one other thing, I just wanted to add a couple things, which from what Mary Ellen was asked about, was we are putting together an outreach strategy for this new board on some of these issues. Part of it is through their mission, vision, values, but recognizing, our opinion is it's just as important on how we go out and work with the community through the rate development or revenue development process, because that's where you're going to build trust to make it easier to go out with a geo bond. So you're building on those relationships. And I think that the tough thing that the new board has ahead of it is the issue of costs, benefits, and how does equity and environmental, how do they want to incorporate that into the flood protection process? I mean, it's not yes or, it's not black and white. It's a lot of gray area that kind of weaves in. But I know in my experience when I was with Multnomah County, and this is just, I went out with a survey on how people wanted to, what was important to them when we were doing, it was a capital survey. Where did they want to spend money? How was their priority? And the interesting thing, I'm not saying this is going to apply here. I'm just saying one of the things that came out of that is environmental and equity were very important. But once you said, okay, once you've made those priorities, here's $1. How are you going to spend $1 across that? And suddenly those things have slipped. I'm not saying, that's going to happen here. I'm just saying from my experience, once they have to put money behind it, there's the priority shifts a little bit. And that's going to be a board decision on where they're going to push and pull.
Well, and my concern is that we have that discussion early, because I bet my life's earnings that if tomorrow Bob Salinger and I went out and explained people how we thought the process was, you get two different stories. If Eric Molander or Paul Lumley went out and did it, you'd get 4 different stories. And so the understanding level of how we present that, I don't want to interfere with what I'm going to say or anybody else is going to say, but we have to agree on an understanding of how, like Val said, flood safety is the number one, So if we call this new district the flood safety district, maybe that puts emphasis on it. I don't know how you have, and I enjoy the diversity of people's looks, because I think what you didn't mention too was reparation, because there are people that see that part of this should provide reparation for the loss of land in the 40s and 50s when dams were built. I'm just bringing it up because I saw that, and after I made my little speech that I thought was fairly harmless, I got a lot of comments, not a lot, several. And so if we can bring a group together that wants to discuss that, that's overly concerned, I think that might be a good idea, and maybe put it on our agenda or all the board's agendas that, they discuss how they see these things. Because it just seems to be one of those things that's going to pop out of the back row to me.
I agree.
And I don't know how many board members can get together to talk about it outside of a board meeting. So all of those things.
I see it could be a committee meeting.
Yeah.
That allows, that way it's documented.
Yeah.
Well, is that it? Or are there further observations specifically about the flood safety board, or what are we calling it?
The F squad might be.
Don't like that one myself. Any other new business? Well, I'm about to adjourn. Anybody speak up if they need to.
I saw Hong had her hand up, but I didn't know. I don't want to.
Han did?
Yeah.
I did only, I think Peggy followed followed in on that, but I just wanted to comment that we have to be careful with how we use language to describe perhaps some of the East Coast or East Side board members. I don't think that they are not buying into the whole environmental justice or social justice aspect of the new urban district board's work, but that we need to show them how the flood control and drainage work impact the environment negatively and socially, and what are we going to do under the new board's mandate to change that? Because I think those board members are on board, and if they're not, that they need to be, because the law requires them to be. But so I was just noting that I think that we should be cooperative or open with our language to recognize that this is a mandate, and that it's not that they don't want to comply. It's just a question of how do we show them we can comply. And
Yeah.
it falls on our work as staff to identify those avenues, which I think for them, a lot of them, and like me, would, have a hard time seeing how is that going to translate into perhaps the social justice part of it. How is that going to work? Maybe it's through procurement, contracting with more minority owned. How is that going to impact our community on a social level is where I have a hard time seeing.
And I appreciate that, because I think you all know I'm more blunt than I am legally, technically correct. And so I guess what I meant is that different people are coming from different angles, hearing different things, and have different histories. Just quickly, Shirley Craddock once took me on. She said, "Mary Helen, don't you like politicians?" And I said, "I love politicians. I mean, And she said, "Well, you're always saying, well, there's politicians and they could be gone." And I've sort of tried to choose my words. That's why you see me pause. It's kind of like it's not the first thing that's gonna come out.
Yeah.
I need to figure out what is. So yeah, I appreciate that. It's just the point I was trying to make is exactly what you said. We need to help people understand the whole picture, and I think even perhaps see what a negative response could have to an overall flood safety. Yeah, I think I got to find something other than F squad, because I've used that term in a really derogatory sense. So
I call it the urban district.
Yeah, there we go.
Urban district. For now, until they find another name.
Well, thank you, Han, and thank you, Mary Helen, for pointing out that she had her hand raised. Can you tell me how I learned that? Is that under the participant?
No, she was
tiger,
going like this, and then she disappeared.
How would I do that?
Or I could be fishing too.
Yeah.
I didn't have the gallery view myself, so I wasn't seeing things. Okay. Are we all satisfied? If so, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for showing up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.